Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics from our studios in Warrensburg on the campus of the University of Central Missouri. This Week in Missouri Politics, busy week. Got to get right into opinion maker panel for the whole time. The White Knight of the Missouri Republican Party, Mike Hafner. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Great to be here.
And Keri Ingle, legislator from the Kansas City area. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Brad Pollitt, the man that represents the state fair. Good to have you back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And for the first time on the show, we're going to call you Representative Michael Hafner. Thank you so much, Josh, from Cass County. Thank you for making the trip over.
Thank you, Scott.
Let's start off with the budget, something you've been neck deep in this year. Give me the rundown of your take on the House budget.
So, Scott, I appreciate that, and I want to start out by going through a historical perspective. The three representatives here started our time in the House of Representatives in 2019. We ran a budget of $29.6 billion. That budget that we just pushed through to the Senate was $46.5 billion. A massive increase. Now, there is a significant amount of that was federal money, I get that. But that's a massive increase, and I'm very concerned about that, how we handle that in the future. But let me just break it down into three significant points. Number one, we fully funded the foundation formula. Now, I'm sure that there'll be some comments here about transportation. I know that's coming. But we fully funded the education formula. The other part of that is we took a look very hard at the infrastructure. $287 million. And what's key to us, those that are in the rural communities, $100 million of that is set up for the rural communities. That's extremely important. And any other point I want to bring out, $3 billion with a B, $3 billion for Medicaid expansion. So if you take a look at what we're spending, not only for Medicaid, but also for education, we're not sure the exact numbers because of the federal dollars, but we're looking at somewhere between 74, maybe as high as 76% of the budget is being allocated and appropriated to those two areas.
Representative Ingle, since you've been coming on this show, you've talked about Medicaid expansion be a good thing for the state. Now you got it, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And it's, it took some court battles. It took the public weighing in, the voters weighing in, and then some continued court battles with my friends over here to ensure that the people's votes are counted and that we have Medicaid expansion across the state, particularly in more rural communities that have been suffering under the weight of the opioid epidemic, have lacked funding and treatment for mental health.
Did you vote for these budget bills?
Did I?
Yep.
You know what? I think I did. I think I did vote for a few of them.
Now, they mentioned the Senate budget. Well,
Yes.
The big conference there'll be the big powwow next week. What do you see in the Senate budget?
There's a lot that we like in the Senate budget on my side of the aisle. We really, Representative Haffner brought up the transportation spending. While we are spending a really, really large amount of money, an unprecedented amount of money, we're not able to, as the House, fully fund school transportation. So we're seeing 4-day school weeks in rural communities across the state.
As a kid that rode the old yellow dog one way down to Neelyville from Stringtown, Missouri, that bus ride, making that as nice as you can makes a big difference in a lot of kids' day.
It absolutely does. And one of the concerns that we've been talking about for most of session is, there's a lot of concern that I have, both as a parent and as a social worker, when you're talking about situations where you have to have a 4-day school week because they either don't have the transportation funding, they don't have the staff, they don't have the teacher pay. They're having to choose between 4-day school weeks and being able to pay their bills. And that's really unacceptable in a lot of areas of Missouri. We're talking about wanting to get people back to work, back in jobs. It's really hard to do when you have a kid at home for 1 day a week.
Representative, you know what these things are like sitting in the room. I mean, if you're living in Chesterfield or Columbia at the end of a cul-de-sac and you got to drive around corner school, it's one thing. You're out the old yellow dog down that gravel road at County Road 454 to Neelyville. That's a different life.
Yeah, when you make a decision to be in a rural community, rural school, then you're actually saying, I'm willing for my child to ride a bus for an hour to an hour and a half to get to school. I want to go back to a little bit more historical data. In 1982, the state of Missouri had a $4 billion budget. And adjusted for inflation, our budget should be somewhere in the middle to upper 20s now. And if you take away the federal bloat in this budget, we're still in the middle 30s. And I think that should be a concern for every Missourian. With that being said, the difference between the House and the Senate budget, I haven't looked at the Senate budget too much, but it's important to me that we leave some bottom line money in case this economy explodes and 3 years from now folks come back to us and say, hey, we're broke, we need some money, and if we don't have some money left over, how are we going to meet those needs at that time? And I'm not I think it's great we're spending money on mental health. You know, mental health is a huge part of this state and of this country, and you know, I think a couple years ago we said 8% of our budget was going toward mental health. That's probably still not enough, but at the same time, I don't have any issue spending on that. I don't have issue spending on public schools. You know, I believe public schools should be more open to some choice options for parents, but at the same time, being in there for 34 years, I know that transportation's been funded at that 18-19% of eligible, and fully funding the transportation formula means 75% of eligible miles to be funded. That takes a lot of money. Gas is $4 a gallon for those buses. They get, or $5 a gallon, they get 4 or 5 miles a gallon, and you know, and school districts have a lot of extra expenses on that. So I understand that. I just really concerned that we got to leave some money in the budget in case something happens to this economy.
Mike Hafner, you've worked in politics long enough to see when there's a bunch of federal money, then there was no money at all from anywhere, then there's more federal money. They're on the high spot of the roller coaster, but these things have downturns.
Yeah, look, I mean, we all read the news. All indications are that we're either in a recession right now or quickly heading into one due to some disastrous policies from the Biden administration. But look, I think the Republicans in Jeff City have the right approach. Conservatives were sent to Jeff City to be conservative stewards of the budget, and you know, over the next couple of weeks they'll finalize what the actual amount and the surplus should be. But what these representatives have said, $47 billion is an absolutely staggering amount of money, and it's hard to even comprehend it just from a few years ago. But I think the right approach is where these guys' heads are at, that we do need to save some of that for future years.
All right, Representative Ingle, the topic that seemed to come up over and over the last few weeks has been transgender athletes.
Right.
And I tell you what, let's start off. Break down what that actually means to somebody, a gun store owner watching this in West Plains. Yeah. What does that actually mean to have a transgender athlete on essentially be, you can, as a girl now, play a boy sport, but essentially be a transgender athlete playing in a girl sport?
Okay. Well, in the state of Missouri, if you were under the age of 18 years old, you're not eligible for really any kind of transition services or therapy, with the exception of what's called a puberty blocker, and that you can only take that when you are prepubescent. And in order to get to that point, you have to go have a psychological evaluation. You have to meet with a therapist. It's a really, really arduous process. And a lot of what they do in those meetings is with these professionals, with these experts, is figure out, you know, how can we meet the needs of this child doing the least amount of interventions. And so oftentimes they're denied puberty blockers until they're a little bit older as well. And so this isn't something that parents or medical professionals are doing willy-nilly. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of science to back this. And there's a lot of actual conservative measures that are put in to ensure the safety of children and to ensure that we're looking out for their best interest.
Representative Pollitt, in the day, I mean, the world's come a long way since you started in education. Yes, I mean, imagine sitting in this room having to think of this. I've watched Republicans, frankly, do things that I thought were homophobic. They were taking advantage of social issues to probably do some things that maybe were politically expedient, but questionable, made you feel, looking back, didn't age well. I think there's an honest guy. Like most of the people I know have never met a transgender person. They don't really have a good concept of this. And to have a person, a biological male, who is transitioning on a girl's team, strikes them as unfair. Not because they're a bigot, they just think it's unfair.
You know, this is a very emotional issue.
Yeah.
And it's emotional for both sides of the issue. And I believe that both sides are pure in heart in what they believe. And
more so this time than many others. Honestly, where Republicans have been concerned, most of this is long before you came into the legislature.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure in hindsight you could say Republicans have always been pure in heart with these things. I think there's a rational person that's not a bigot. They could look at this and see an unfairness there.
And that's what I mean, pure of heart. You know, like I said, we've had some very heated debates on the House floor, and people were speaking from what they believe and not making it up, exactly what they believe. what the representative was talking about, I personally have an issue with MISH's policy where they require a student to take the what I consider to be invasive treatments in order to play at the high school level, and they're asking those students to do that at such a young age. And I do believe that a male would have a unfair advantage.
Sure.
And
Common sense.
we're told numerous times that this is maybe 10 kids in the state that this might affect at this time, and down the road it may be more than that. But
I have to think. Representative Haffner, yes, it's 6, 8, 10 kids now, right? It will be more if you look at the trend nationwide. And I also think Misha's put in a terrible spot. This is a tough thing it's a tough thing for anybody to deal with.
Well, Scott, I agree with you 100%, and you've heard me talk about that. I think this is an equal opportunity issue. So even if someone is going through those treatments, that male body, even at 18 years old, there's larger bone structure,
Sure.
more heart pumping capability. And as a guy who came from a very meager background, my opportunity to be sitting here today is because of my education. And my ticket to that was through a Division I scholarship. And a lot of your smaller schools, I participated in track and field, those scholarships are determined at the state meet. And so that opportunity, and the bills that we have debated this week, we have debated multiple bills, but the latest one doesn't prevent those individuals from competing. They can compete. It gives the flexibility of the school board. If they want to do male-female sports, they can do that. What we're saying is level the playing field, especially when it comes to the opportunity within education through those scholarships. It ought to be a level playing field.
Mike Hafner, I've seen, since you and I have been around politics, some stuff that didn't age well the Republicans have done. I think there's, and honestly, I see pieces of that in this from some folks. But to be candid, I think you could make an argument, without just being a straight up bigot, that this is an unfair thing, and if you are a father of a daughter, as I am, you wouldn't think it was unfair.
It's a valid argument. As Representative Pollitt said, and you listened to the debate this week, it was very passionate on both sides. I will tell you, in my role in Vicky Hartzler's campaign, we ran an ad on that
Sure.
dealt with this issue. Highlighting the fact of Leah Thomas swimming in the NCAA championships, winning one of her races. I will tell you that we had parents from other Ivy League universities that contacted us, even one that said she was a lifelong Democrat, volunteered for liberal causes her whole life, voted Democrat her whole life, with a daughter on one of the other Ivy League teams, and she said that the Democrat Party lost her on this one issue forever. And there's, I think, an argument to be made that there are a lot of parents of young girls that, in this particular case, that opportunities may have been taken away from them. And it's a passionate issue on both sides. I think both sides have valid arguments, but it's something that that both sides are finding some fault in.
How did you explain to a father that's got a daughter at Tipton High School, playing sports right now, watching this Sunday morning, eating his breakfast, drinking his coffee, that does not know anyone that's transgender?
Sure.
How could you make him feel comfortable about your position on this?
So, I think I would probably talk to him much the way I talk to my children about really complex issues like this. So I've got a 10-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. And, this isn't something that I bring to them to talk to them about. But, my son is precocious and he pays attention to what's going on in the news. And he saw when his adopted Uncle Ian made national headlines.
Sure.
So he was really aware of that.
Tremendous speech he gave in the House floor.
Exactly. And so he had questions. And I simply explained that, first of all, gender and sex are two different things. And that, and went into detail on that, right? But talk to him about, it's really important that if someone isn't hurting themselves or hurting someone else, that we let them be. Like that's part of one of the great things about America is our freedom to let people exist as they are. If you're not hurting anyone, you're not a danger to yourself or others, let them play.
Do you think the time part on this, I've watched gay rights probably move faster than any other group's rights. There was a big hubbub about marriage. I don't think the institution of marriage has been affected at all by gay marriage. Now today you have, do you think that maybe the difference here is folks that don't know anyone that's transgender, they have a viewpoint from not having that advantage to know someone?
Absolutely. I think that people are often fearful of things that they don't understand, that they haven't been exposed to. And so, but I think we always need to err on the side of mercy, compassion, grace, and treat everyone with the dignity and respect that we would want shown to us if we were the ones in that kind of minority oppressed situation.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Keep our opinion maker panel around for the second part of the show. But first, go to showmissouri.com. The history of Missouri, one county at a time. This week we're in Scotland County, Memphis, but not the one you're thinking of, up in Scotland County. We'll be right back after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Let's talk a little campaigns. Mike Hafner, you are running the Vicky Hartzler for Senate campaign. Give me the rundown on the race.
Well, look, it's a three-person race. All polling indicates it. Vicky Hartzler, Eric Schmidt, and Eric Greitens. We're 100 days out, less than 100 days out. It feels like we should be in the home stretch, but there's a lot of game left to play. I think Vicky's in the driver's seat. Her message of faith, family, the American way is resonating across the state, and the polling shows it. She's an extraordinarily hard worker. It's great to work with her.
Corn growers came in.
Big corn
right?
growers, yep. Big corn growers endorsement. Missouri Cattlemen Association has endorsed. Hopefully the other ag groups come along as well.
Feels to me like if you're an undecided voter, she's got probably pole position on getting you. But if you peel off Greitens or someone, maybe Schmidt or someone else has a better claim to that. If you're an undecided voter, I think you got to feel good about getting those, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, was Eric Greitens going to hit another woman to convince you? I mean, what's he going to do?
You know, what we've seen over the last month, especially after the new allegations came out from his ex-wife, is that his poll numbers have completely cratered and tanked, and we don't know what the floor of that is yet. He's got a whole lot of money from two billionaires that he's airing super PAC attack ads against the other two front runners in the race, and we'll see what kind of an impact those are. But we'll be competitive to the end in this.
Representative Pollitt, what do folks down the state fair think?
Well, Pettis County is Vicky Hartzler country.
Yep.
And Vicky, I've known Vicky for a long time, and personal story. We had an incident happen at the school district when I was superintendent, and it wasn't less than an hour where my phone rang as Vicky when she was our representative, wanting to know, what she could do, if there's anything she could do. And, it's important for folks, if I pick up my phone, if I leave here today and I call her phone, she'll answer it. And, that's something you just don't get every day.
There's not that many legislators can say that about their members. They might call them back, but they pick that up like that.
Sometimes she'll text me and say, I'm on the House floor, can I call you when we get off?
That's awesome.
And I'm a nobody. So there you have it. There you have it. So
Representative Haffner, tell me, where's the race at in Cass County?
So Cass County is all about Vicky Hartzler and what the people in Cass. That's right.
Yep.
And so what people are looking at is, number one, somebody that understands the military, that understands national security. The other part, Missouri, is about agriculture. The individual, let's face it, that individual that ends up being in the Senate could change the face of Missouri politics for the next decade. They're looking for a military national security leader. They're looking for an agricultural leader.
That ag list she put out was incredible.
Yes.
I mean, you had a ton of Charlie Cruz on down that she had on that. That was impressive to anybody, I think. All right, tell me about the other side. Lucas Coons seems to be hitting it hard. Trudy Bush Valentine, Gussie Bush's daughter, enters the race. If you could just drip a dream scenario for obviously hard time for Missouri Democrats, but you have a guy that's, the former First Lady says is hitting her, and he's got a mistress tied up somewhere in a basement. Yet contrast that with a nurse, mother, Gussie Bush's daughter, could fund part of the race. You almost think that's too good to be true, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that she's a pretty remarkable person. Although she was born into wealth, she's used those opportunities to enrich her communities, whether it's through her philanthropic work, through her work as a nurse. She's a single mom. She was a widow at a relatively early age, and she's given back to her community in such large ways. I've spoken to her personally. She's actually really incredibly down to earth and cares about the kitchen table issues that affect Missourians, whether we're talking about inflation, access to mental health services, national security. The things that really affect Missourians are the things that are at the top of her list of priorities.
Like Haffner, I mean, I think probably you get a Schmidt, you get a Hart. So I mean, it's really not a competitive state. But you get an Eric Greitens, contrasted with that. Now, I still think Republicans, this is my gut, probably wins that, but I mean, it's not a pushover.
No, not at all. If Eric Greitens is nominated in August, we could very well have a Senator Bush Valentine.
Well, you could also very well have some other states Republicans could do well in. You have to take that money to spend here.
Sure.
So even if you don't lose Missouri, it puts you in a harder place in other parts of the country. And Missouri's media markets, I mean, Kansas City, half the media market's in Kansas. St. Louis, a third of it's in Illinois. It's an expensive state to reach folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Eric Greitens is a damaged candidate. He's unfit to hold office. If Republicans select him in August, we're in trouble in November.
At least you don't have to talk about values anymore, because I don't want to believe you. Let's talk about geography. Let's talk about eminent domain, something that matters to folks. There was a big, I guess you'd call it the wind in the plains. We were taking the energy and shipping it to Chicago. They got to come through North Missouri to do that, right?
That's right.
So through that has been some real questions about how the eminent domain process worked here in Missouri, because it's not like they're building a highway. I mean, this is a line that's going to make money for the company that does it. A little bit different use than we've seen traditionally on such a large scale. You've been working on some legislation to kind of move past that and talk about the next thing. What should the eminent domain law be for a private company in Missouri?
Well, Scott, there's a couple things here, and what we've seen is there's part of the process with eminent domain is broken, and that's the certificate process that comes through the Public Service Commission. All right, that complaint process, the checks and balances aren't working. So what we need to ensure for all future products, number one, it doesn't matter. If it's a utility line that's going to be coming through Missouri, we need to ensure that the individuals that have their land condemned, they're going to be taken from them. They need to be getting fair market value. That is not necessarily happening today, and here's why. And for those in agriculture, I'll understand this very clearly. They're doing the assessment of the value of agricultural land on a county-by-county basis. That productivity value can change significantly over 20 to 30 miles. It is not sufficient to evaluate that on a county-by-county basis. We're looking at that. We have a fix now in the bill that's in the Senate to take care of that. But the other part that's very important, part of the process with the certification, the certificates is broken, okay, through the complaint process. The first tartan factor, which is the tartan factors are the factors that determine its value. It's got to be good for the state of Missouri. Right now, less than 10% of the power from that line is going to be benefiting Missourians. And so that's another aspect that the bill that we currently have in the Senate is going to take care of.
What do you think? I mean, I do think if you're going to take someone's land, probably pay them a premium for it, right?
Right. And, I've heard testimony on both sides of this issue for the last 4 years. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yes, it is.
And you and I have really kind of been on both sides of this issue together as time has gone on. And obviously, I married into Missouri Century Farmers, and so I do care a lot about land rights, and it's something that you can never get back once it's taken from you. I think we need to be really cognizant of that, but I think that we also need to be pushing forward as far as energy. When we're talking about energy independence, especially from Russia in times like this, we need to be looking broader. And so I think we need to do a balance. We need to make sure that they're fairly compensated and that they feel like they're fairly compensated, and do everything that we can to reach that.
You won't perk up the ears of an old Pettis County cattle farmer, say eminent domain, right?
Yeah, that's right, exactly right. I'm from Iowa originally, and my dad passed away about a year ago, but he started with nothing, and he accumulated in 60 years, a couple thousand acres of land.
Wow.
And to think that a company would come in that he had worked so hard for and spent 18 hours a day working to acquire that land and to provide for his family, that a company could come in and say, we're going to take this and this is what we're going to pay you. That's unfathomable to me that we would be that way.
Just strikes folks in Missouri. Eminent domain's a hard thing to sell in rural Missouri.
There's no greater responsibility, I think, than protecting our constitutional private property rights of our farmers, and this has been the biggest priority of our ag groups for the last few years.
Yeah.
Mike's leadership, Representative Hafner's leadership in the House has been tremendous on it. Jason Bean is in the Senate. It's time to get it across.
If you don't pass this, Deering's going to shoot someone, right? I mean, that's the truth. Give me a real quick prediction. You got to get a congressional map out of the legislature to the governor's desk.
I certainly hope so.
But you think that's going to happen?
I am not confident.
What do you think?
I'm not confident.
Not a chance.
What do you think?
No.
Yeah, I kind of don't think so either. When you have the Democrats, the conservative caucus combined with no real reason, I don't think it happens. But with a minute left, you won the week.
Dean Plocker, look, there's no shortage of folks in the building from both chambers that are coming to him with some, frankly, quite wild ideas, and he's handling it with grace and professionalism, and that bodes well for the future.
It's going to be when the whole state gets a look at him next year, they're going to be impressed, I think.
I think so.
Won the week.
I would say my friend Representative Ian Mackey, once again, whenever the
He's
House
the
and
new
the
Brian
Senate.
Seitz of the show now. Every week he wins.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. When we're not fulfilling our constitutional obligations to complete congressional maps and to complete a budget in a timely manner, and we're injecting partisan cultural wedge issues, Ian's going to win every single time.
I heard Bob Honor make a similar argument this week. Who won the week?
Coach Gary Pinkel.
Oh,
we
yeah.
had a day down at the Capitol, and what Coach did for Missouri football.
Turned it around.
It turns it around.
Would we be in the SEC today without Gary Pinkel?
No.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, and he turns the economy around, the money that it brings in, and heightened that expectation for football in Mizzou.
Who won the week?
The guy who won the week is the gentleman right to my right, Representative Brad Pollitt. He's taken some very difficult legislation. He's brought both sides to the table. He's made good legislation, and he's handled the debate very well.
I agree. You've kind of become the go-to guy if something's challenged. That's quite an honor.
Thank you.
I'm going to give an honor to Edie Vogel, the sister of former Senator Carl Vogel. Finally, somebody stood up, told Wilkerson City no. She took him to court, and they're going to put her pavers back in. And I say, congratulations. I want to get a selfie with the pavers before this is over. We'll be right back next week from the state capitol on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Support for this program has been provided by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and Sterling Bank.